It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. The end justifies the means. It is better to be impetuous than cautious, because fortune is a woman, and if you want to control her, you have to beat and batter her. A wise ruler ought never to keep faith when by doing so it would be against his interests. Men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand, for everyone can see and few can feel. The first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him. A prince must imitate the fox and the lion, for the lion cannot protect himself from traps, and the fox cannot defend himself from wolves. One must therefore be a fox to recognize traps, and a lion to frighten wolves. Never attempt to win by force what can be won by deception. The one who adapts his policy to the times prospers, and likewise that the one whose policy clashes with the demands of the times does not. The most dangerous moment comes with victory. Hatred is gained as much by good works as by evil. It is not titles that honor men, but men that honor titles. All courses of action are risky, so prudence is not in avoiding danger, it's impossible, but calculating risk and acting decisively. Politics have no relation to morals. There is no avoiding war. It can only be postponed to the advantage of others. The greatest happiness you can have is knowing that you do not necessarily require happiness. I'm not interested in preserving the status quo. I want to overthrow it. Never was anything great achieved without danger. The wise man does at once what the fool does finally. The more sand has escaped from the hourglass of our life, the clearer we should see through it. Men in general judge more by the sense of sight than by the sense of touch, because everyone can see but only a few can test by feeling. The fact is that a man who wants to act virtuously in every way necessarily comes to grief among so many who are not virtuous. It is better to be adventurous than cautious, because fortune is a woman, and if you want to keep her under, it is necessary to beat and ill-use her. War is just when it is necessary. Arms are permissible when there is no hope except in arms. The injury that is to be done to a man ought to be of such a kind that one does not stand in fear of revenge. Since it is difficult to join them together, it is safer to be feared than to be loved when one of the two must be lacking. The more sand that has escaped from the hourglass of our life, the clearer we should see through it. The wise man does not impose his own will on others, but rather adapts himself to them. Before all else, be armed. The best fortress which a prince can possess is the affection of his people. It is necessary for a prince wishing to hold his own to know how to do wrong, and to make use of it or not according to necessity. The first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him. He who wishes to be obeyed must know how to command. The promise given was a necessity of the past. The word broken is a necessity of the present. He who neglects what is done for what ought to be done, sooner effects his ruin than his preservation. All the states, all the dominions, under whose authority men have lived in the past and live now have been and are either republics or principalities. A man who is used to acting in one way never changes. He must come to ruin when the times, in changing, no longer are in harmony with his ways. It is not titles that make men illustrious, but men who make titles illustrious. The vulgar crowd always is taken by appearances, and the world consists chiefly of the vulgar. It is double pleasure to deceive the deceiver. There is no other way to guard yourself against flattery than by making men understand that telling you the truth will not offend you. The prince must consider, as has been in part said before, how to avoid those things which will make him hated or contemptible. And as often as he shall have succeeded, he will have fulfilled his part, and he need not fear any danger in other reproaches. When you disarm the people, you commence to offend them and show that you distrust them either through cowardice or lack of confidence, and both of these opinions generate hatred. Whosoever desires constant success must change his conduct with the times. The first method of estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him. Men are so simple and yield so readily to the desires of the moment that he who will trick will always find another who will suffer to be tricked. There is no surer sign of decay in a country than to see the rights of religion held in contempt. The reason there will be no change is because the people who stand to lose from change have all the power. And the people who stand to gain from change have none of the power. It is not the well-being of individuals that makes cities great, but the well-being of the community. The wise man does not try to keep alive his own life, but he leaves it to others to keep it alive.